Jose Chavez is back in Atlanta. Ian Anderson is not. Let's talk about it. Yes, come on in to Braves Today for Monday, March 24th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Tons of ways to support the show. The number one way is subscribing to the YouTube channel. We are this close to 4,000 subscribers. We're trying to get there by opening day, 4K by opening day, but also subscribing to the Substack, free or paid, as well as on social media. I want to get to some of the releases and cuts made over the weekend and figure out, is there anybody the Braves need to go out and grab? But first, two giant pieces of news from over the weekend. One of them completely expected. One of them not completely unexpected, but was a big surprise when it happened. The Atlanta Braves signed Jose Suarez, Uncle Jesse, for what could be his 7th stint with the team. They also traded away Ian Anderson to the Los Angeles Angels. Let's take the Angels side of this first. We've talked all spring about how Ian Anderson has been walking too many guys. 20 innings pitched this spring, 20 walks. And the only reason he got below, he got the innings pitched and walks to be the same number and not have more walks than innings, is because in his final outing on Sunday against Baltimore, he only walked 2 in his 3 innings. That's the only reason that he has allowed, or that he has the same number of innings as walks. He had more innings and walks all the way through spring. And you couple that with only 10 strikeouts in 20 innings. Obviously not great numbers here. And what's been really hard about this with Ian Anderson is everything else outside of the walk and the strikeout totals has been pretty good. 20 innings pitched, 8 hits, 5 runs allowed, no homers, a 2.25 ERA. But at the same time, again, he walked 20 guys and hit somebody with a pitch. So it was a whip of 140. It was by far the worst walk rate of anybody who pitched, I think, more than 15 innings in the Grapefruit League is what I saw. And not only the worst by far, it wasn't close. And so, faced with the prospect of A, installing that guy as the 5th starter, or B, putting that guy in your pen as your long man, the Braves instead took option C. They traded Ian Anderson. We talked about this last week, and I mentioned they could still trade him between now and opening day. Move on from him like they've moved on from some of the other flash-in-the-pan guys that they've had before. Not calling Ian a flash-in-the-pan. I think this is all related to, he was already a guy prone to high walks, and then he's trying to come back from a major injury, one that usually takes a while for guys to dial their control back in after they come back from it. But the return for this deal is also really strange. The Braves got lefty reliever Jose Suarez from the Angels. Another player out of options. So it's an out of options guy for an out of options guy, which is typically how these deals work, right? You don't get an actual good prospect for a player that is out of options and wasn't going to make your roster. This is how it works. And there's a couple things that I guess Jose Suarez has going for him, which is why Atlanta made this deal. I think the first one is obvious. He's a lefty. when we did the bullpen breakdown the other day and talked about, pretty sure we know who the roster is now, barring a trade. There's your trade. We pointed out there was no third lefty in the pen. You had Aaron Bummer. You had Dylan Lee. To me, Dylan Lee is the lefty half of your setup duo. Pierce Johnson's your main setup against righties. Dylan Lee's your main setup against lefties. And Aaron Bummer is your ground ball specialist who is your fireman. And a lot of people, anecdotally, when I say fireman, I'm talking about you don't really care when in the game you bring him in. It's a situation where you have runners or multiple runners, like a runner or multiple runners on base, and you need a ground ball to get out of the inning. That's like, you've got guys on base, you've got to shut this down to get out of the inning. That's your fireman situation. Aaron Bummer is primed to take that spot. I'll remind you, he had one of the best ground ball rates in all of baseball last year and allowed a grand total of 2 barrels. He keeps the ball on the ground. That is what you want in a situation with multiple runners on trying to protect a lead. So you had both of those. That meant you didn't have a third lefty on the opening day roster, or projected to be on the opening day roster. Hector Neris had some reverse splits last year, but it was a lot of projection of who is the third, like who is going to get lefties out if you've already used Bummer and you're trying to hold Lee for the 8th inning or whatever. Here's a third lefty. At the same time, Jose Suarez is not very good and has not been very good for a while. Okay. So Jose Suarez, his big kind of breakout was 21 and 22. He pitched 98 and a third innings in 21. He pitched 109 in 22. And it was a 3.75 ERA in 21. And it was a 3.96 ERA in 22. And he did that working in both starting and relief. 23 appearances, 14 starts in 21. 22 appearances, 20 starts in 2022. And then something changed. And he was bad. 2023, he got in only 33 and 2/3 innings, had an ERA of 8.29, spent most of the year in the minors. Last year, still wasn't good. 22 games, 52 and a third innings, ERA of 6.02. And so the Braves, in essence, have replaced a struggling starter with a struggling reliever. And they went from a righty to a lefty. There's a couple ways you can think about this, okay? Option one, the first way to think about this, is either one of them can be your long man, and you're giving Ian Anderson, you're trying to do what's best for the player by giving him an opportunity to maybe stick into a rotation and or play his way back to form in the majors, understanding you can't do it on your roster. That's the first way to think about this. Is the altruistic, we want to help him, this is the best situation for him, and we got something of some sort of quality. We got something back for him. The other, more perhaps cynical way to think about this is if you DFA Jose Suarez in 3 weeks, nobody's going to care because we don't have an emotional attachment to Jose Suarez. And we had an emotional attachment to Ian Anderson. Ian Anderson pitched Game 3 of the 2021 World Series. I was there. He had a no-hitter through 5. He walked a couple guys, but he had a no-hitter through 5. And that is the Ian Anderson experience. When he's amazing, he can have a no-hitter in the World Series, but it's not a perfect game because he walked a couple dudes. I think he hit somebody also in that game. So the cynical way of looking at this, and what probably or possibly could end up being correct, is rather than DFA Ian Anderson and get not the hate, but have people react negatively to that, you can trade him and then DFA his replacement in a couple weeks if he's not good. And there's a couple things you could do to try to make Jose Suarez good, right? It's a 6-pitch arsenal, which again, he was starting a lot. It's not just a relief arsenal. But nothing was good last year except for some of the breaking pitches. And back in 22, when he had an ERA under 4, mostly starting, the run value for each pitch type was at least 0 or positive, right? It was +1 on fastballs, +2 on breaking pitches, and 0 on off speeds. And when you look at what happened, I don't know. I don't know specifically what changed from 22 to 23 for him to be so bad than 24. I probably have to dive into it a little bit more before I can figure that out. But what I can tell you is there are a couple of very obvious tweaks that we know how Atlanta likes to do things to try and fix Jose Suarez. Just a short term, see if you can get a boost in performance. One, it's just a different environment. We've seen this with other quality players who go from a team that is bad to a team that is good and do better. Aaron Bummer was better here than he was in Chicago with the White Sox. Pierce Johnson was better here than he was in Colorado with the Rockies. Similar situation possibly here. Raisel Iglesias, we got him from the Angels, and this was like the best season of his career last year. Side note on that, by the way, I did some counting using the MLB Trade Rumors transaction tracker. I think this is the 13th different trade between the Angels and the Braves since Alex Anthopoulos took over. Not counting the staff hires, right? Sal Fasano, Ron Washington, Perry Manassian, the GM, he was formerly in Atlanta. So a lot of overlap between these teams, a lot of frequent work. But getting back to Suarez, I think the number one change you may see the team make when the season starts, because we got reporting on Sunday from Justin Toscano, friend of the show, that Suarez will be on the opening day roster. So he is getting Ian Anderson's roster spot. They're not going to DFA him. He will get the spot. The initial change you can make is ramp up usage of his sweeper and his slider. The sweeper was the only pitch of his that had a batting average allowed against it of under 235, right? It was at a 167 allowed with a slug of 233. Every other pitch allowed a batting average of at least 240 or better and a slug of at least 390 or better. So throwing more sweepers. He used it 12% of the time last year. Throwing more sweepers, probably some more sliders off of that. He has a cutter that he barely touched. But the four-seamer, 280 average allowed, 480 slug on the four-seamer. You should not be throwing that 40% of the time. Think about what Atlanta did with Pierce Johnson. They ramped up that curveball to 75% usage. I'm not saying he's going to throw the sweeper 70% of the time, but can you take that from a 12% to a 30%? Maybe. It'll regress a little bit, but how much better will the four-seamer and the changeup and things look when they're not being used as much? Four-seamer changeup together were 65% usage. That's going to have to come down. So we'll see if they can figure it out, if they can fix Jose Suarez. And if they can't, again, couple weeks into the season, you can absolutely just DFA him, and you're not going to have the same reaction as if you just DFA'd Ian Anderson. In just a minute, Jose Chavez is back with the Braves. Let's break that down next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chinook Seedery. These are the best possible sunflower seeds on the market. They are just bigger, better tasting than any other sunflower seed on the market. And what's great, tons of fun flavors, and you can customize and build your own packs. So, the flavors that they offer, original, just a nice balance of saltiness and sweetness. It's fantastic. Lemon pepper, the custom flavor of Bobby Witt Jr., jalapeno ranch, Parmesan and pepper. I'm telling you, don't sleep on the Parmesan and pepper. Cinnamon toast, dill pickle, hatch chili, smokehouse barbecue. Buy a variety pack and try them all. When you decide what you like, go to ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. You get 10% off your order. You can build your own case. Pick just the flavors you want. They'll ship that to you. With the promo code BRAVES, you get 10% off your order. Orders are over $40, get free shipping. And if you sign up to subscribe and save, where you have them ship them on a regular schedule, you can get an additional 10% off your order. So, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES for 10% off. Again, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES for 10% off. Folks, Uncle Jesse is back. Just Within a day of the Texas Rangers releasing 41-year-old veteran Jose Chavez from his deal, his minor league deal that he had with them, Chavez was signed by the Atlanta Braves. We got info. He pitched on Sunday. He was signed on Saturday, and he pitched in Northport on Sunday. Just a quick turnaround. We got some reporting. He went on the broadcast after his innings and was talking to the FanDuel Sports Network guys, to Brandon Gaud and to CJ Nikowski. And Jesse said that once the release was official, he was very explicit that he broke no rules here. Once the release was official, he called Alex Anthopoulos and said, I want to come back. And Alex Anthopoulos was open to it. Obviously, he signed, and he is now here. Now, he's not going to be on the opening day roster. They made the decision last night. They finalized the roster. Chavez, Craig Kimbrell, James McCann were all reassigned to minor league camp. Jose Verdugo had already been optioned to minor league camp. They also optioned down Bryce Elder. And he was the last guy that was outstanding, which means a couple things. One, Chavez is staying with the organization. He is, I believe, now one of the 3 or 4 oldest players in baseball. I do think he's the oldest reliever. I think the other 3 old players, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and Charlie Morton, are all starters. Jose Chavez is 41 years old. I think he's the oldest reliever in baseball. But now when you look at your depth and you look at what you have, you can see at the major league level and at the minor league level who your options are. Your starters. Now, your 5 starters on the roster for opening day: Chris Sale, Renato Lopez, Spencer Schwellenbach, Grant Holmes, AJ Smith-Shawver. AJ Smith-Shawver has made the rotation. He has officially, finally, won a rotation spot. Now, he has to keep it. He is not guaranteed to have that all year, but I've been very high on AJ Smith-Shawver this offseason, and everything that I've seen, I legitimately think he is going to be able to hold on to that rotation spot. Everything that I've seen, I am convinced he is set to be in Atlanta. Just like Mark Bowman said on Twitter last week, on X last week. Somebody got in the comments and got mad at me about that. AJ Smith-Shawver might make 20 starts this year. He has all the stuff to make 20 starts. You have to figure something out when Spencer Strider comes back. But now there is a very clear path to making a rotation spot for Spencer Strider, who, by the way, also looked good on Sunday. He got a little bit of trouble in the second inning. He did give up a homer, but looked good. And as much as people want him to just start as an opener and build up in the games, I'm fine with him going to the minors for a couple starts. Not a big deal. But now you have a very clear 1 through 5. Chris Sale, Lopez, Schwellenbach, Holmes, and Smith-Shawver. Your 6th starter is now Bryce Elder. You also, down there, for now, we'll see how this changes, you have Davis Daniel, you have Dylan Dodd, you have Hurston Waldrop, and then you just acquired Nathan Wiles from the Rays over the weekend. He's spent part of 3 different seasons in AAA. He's both a starter and a reliever. He can be a swingman for you. So you have options for some length, and that doesn't count prospects that made debut this year. So the 5 plus Strider is 6. Elder, Davis, Waldrop, Dodd is 10. Nathan Wiles would be 11 if you need to go that far. Royber Salinas, when he's ready, and he's on the 6-day IL to start the year, he'd be 12 if you need to go that far. And then you start introducing the prospects. Drew Hackenberg, Lucas Braun, Blake Burkhalter, John Carlos Lara. There's plenty of guys that you can go with in the minors if you need starts here and there. Not all of them are going to work out. Not all the depth guys I mentioned are going to work out. But you can see now where there is a clear path to, barring his own injury, AJ Smith-Shawver should be able to make a bunch of starts. And in the bullpen, your depth is also very good. Again, I don't know if Jose Suarez will stick around more than a few weeks. But it's very easy to take a Grant Holmes and stick him back in the pen in that Jose Suarez long man role if Suarez doesn't work out. If Suarez does work out, if AJ Smith-Shawver's not, you can option him back to AAA and put Strider into that spot. There's easy ways to see how this works out. If both of those happen, if Suarez isn't working out and Smith-Shawver isn't working out, guess what? You can put Strider into Smith-Shawver's spot, option him down. You can bring Jose Chavez from Gwinnett, if he's ready, into the majors and stick him into that logman role. Like, there is very clear pecking orders now, and you have figured out this roster crunch. And at the main time, we have not yet gotten word on some of these opt-outs. Buck Farmer's still with the organization. From what I understand, he does have an opt-out over the weekend. I would assume if we have not heard by this morning that he's been released, that he will be sticking with the team, sticking with the organization. As of time of recording, it has not been reported that he is exercising his opt-out. The deadline to give the team notification of that was Saturday, and the deadline for Atlanta to add him to the roster is today. So there could still be something happening between when I record and when this posts on Monday at noon, where they had to release him or do something with that. But you've got Craig Kimbrell in the minors you can call up. You've got Wander Suero and Noli Paredes, Jordan Weems, Jason Shreve. Like, you've got plenty of arms down there. Amos Willingham was down there. Domingo Gonzalez, Rolly Munoz. It feels like you have a lot more depth than you've had in recent years, because we can name off a whole second bullpen of guys who have major league experience that are in the minors. I mean, in AAA right now, if you look at Fangraphs roster resource, couldn't make words there. 8 guys were added this offseason who all have major league experience, who are going to start the year in Gwinnett in the bullpen. It's a full major league bullpen of experienced relievers. You'll probably still have to make a move at some point in time in the year, especially if you need somebody of quality. You need to replace Pierce Johnson or an Aaron Bummer or something. But you've got a lot of stuff down there. You also did a lot of work to add, whether it's Alex Verdugo, you've added different guys for depth at different positions in the infield. But with this weekend's cuts, is there anybody notable that you should be looking at? We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today for Monday the 23rd. And a lot of the final decisions on cuts are due this morning. So we're recording before all of those are done. But there was a couple guys over the weekend that either I've been asked about if Atlanta should go out and get them, or I wanted to at least bring it up as heads up. This feels like a player Atlanta may go offer a minor league deal to see if they would sign on with this organization and go hang out in Gwinnett in case we need them. The first one, I was specifically asked about Nick Ahmed. Former Braves draft pick in 2011. He was a second-round pick by the Braves in 2011. He never played for Atlanta. He was dealt in 2013 in the deal to acquire Justin Upton. So him, Martin Prado, Randall Delgado, I'm trying to remember who else was in that deal, like Brandon Drury maybe, in the Justin Upton, Chris Johnson deal back in 2013. So he never played by Atlanta, or never played for Atlanta, but he was in camp with the Rangers, just like Jose Chavez was, and he was eventually released. He played for 3 teams last year. He played for the Dodgers, for the Padres, and for the Giants last year. Career .234 hitter. He hit .229 last year in his 71 total games. He got like 228 plate appearances, 210 at-bats. Doesn't really give you a lot otherwise. Not really making a ton of contact. His best years, 2019 and 2020, offensively hit .254 and .266, but he won Gold Gloves in 18 and 19 at the end of his 20s in Arizona. He is now, I think he's 35 now. He just turned 35 like last week. Nothing more than an insurance policy at this case. Like, I would be okay with the concept of giving Nick Ahmed a minor league deal and sticking him in Gwinnett for emergencies. Right now, if you look at your shortstop options, you have Luke Williams. I'm sorry, after Nick Allen at the major league level. Obviously, Nick Allen and Orlando Arcia are in the majors. In the minors, Luke Williams has played some shortstop. He's not a guy you're going to play there for a week if there's an injury. He's a fill-in utility guy. He's still in the organization. Jose Devers is a former shortstop who is more of a second baseman now than a shortstop. He can play it. He didn't look great in spring when he did it. Eddie Alvarez is 35 years old, but he's more of a second baseman and a corner outfield type than he is a shortstop. I'm not opposed to offering Nick Ahmed a minor league deal. He'll probably I think he'll have an opt-out with it, but offer him that. If something happens, you have a major league caliber defensive shortstop in the majors if you need one. Dane Dunning was put on waivers by the Rangers. The Rangers keep doing some really interesting stuff here, especially with their rotation injuries. He's not a bad pitcher, not necessarily a good pitcher at this point. Had a 5.31 ERA last year in 15 starts, 26 total appearances, 95 innings. The year before that, in 23, was really good for Dane Dunning. 12-7, 3.70 ERA, 35 total games, 26 starts, covered 172 innings. Alex Anthopoulos has talked before about how hard it is to get innings, to get major league caliber innings. If he's the guy with a 5.31 ERA, no thank you, don't want that. If you can figure out what made him have that 3.70 ERA, absolutely all for it. Maybe he ends up taking that Suarez role in the pen. If Suarez flops on his face in the first couple weeks, Dane Dunning, maybe if you claim him off of waivers, I think you have to pick up that salary. It's $2 million and change. Not a bad salary. You stick him in Gwinnett if he's willing to take the assignment. And maybe he's your fill-in option for Suarez. If Suarez struggles, I'd expect he will, and you have to DFA him in a couple weeks. Another guy, I don't see the fit, but somebody specifically asked me about this, is Mitch Haniger. The outfielder was, in essence, just cut by the Mariners, despite being owed, I think it's like $15.5 million this year. He was the return, along with Anthony DeScalfini, for Robbie Ray. And like from the Giants to the Mariners. And was not good for Seattle last year. Hit 208 in 121 games with 12 homers. You can't blame the ballpark, because in 2023, in 61 games for the Giants, he hit 209. And another ballpark that is tough in certain situations, maybe for righties or whatever, but still, the point is, he wasn't good for the Giants. He wasn't good for the Mariners. I really don't think that Mitch Haniger does anything for you. And like maybe at best, you stick him in Gwinnett. And that's an option if you need to fill in your outfield. Maybe like he's a Brian De La Cruz replacement. Maybe. But that's about really it. I'm not sold on Mitch Haniger being added. There will be more guys that get cut this morning when we recorded. So if somebody pops up that you see that you think might work for Atlanta, feel free to send it in. I'm on X, Twitter at Crosby Baseball. The show as well, Braves_today. You can email us, contact@bravestoday.com. Reach out. Heck, my DMs are open. I'm perfectly fine with that. In the meantime, you're listening on audio. Do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that next episode, and maybe also leave us a 5-star review. That'd be super awesome. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.